everybody. We're so glad that you have joined us this evening for Vespers, that we could gather together again and be reminded that we're not alone. Tonight, we're going to begin, like we do every week, celebrating the presence of Christ, who is in us, among us, and beyond us. Remembering all those in our family of faith and in our larger community, in our nation, and in our world who are suffering, and knowing that the presence of Christ is with them as well. And so tonight, so glad that you have joined us again for Advent, our first Advent Vespers. We're going to do things a little bit differently during Advent, not too much, but I hope that you have been enjoying the Advent devotions that have been going out each morning. It's always a joy to get to hear from everybody in the congregation, to get to hear from good friends who are traveling this journey alongside of us, and to be reminded how Christ is present in all of our lives. I love getting the opportunity to read those. Today's was actually from Matt Gabbard, who we're going to talk with tonight. He's going to read his devotion for us if you haven't had a chance to read it. It's really nice, though, to get to hear folks read these in their own voices, and we hope that this will be a time that's a blessing for everybody during the season of Advent, especially when we've had to distance and separate, so that we can remember those in our church family and hear a little more about what's going on with them as well. So we'll be doing that this Advent season. Today I had the opportunity to take a drive for a while, and I found myself on some back roads, and the snow was just beautiful, and kind of like rivulets along the sides of these hills, and I was just taken by the beauty that was there. And I noticed, as I was driving past tractors and houses and cows and all kinds of stuff on the side of the road, how many marks we leave on the world around us, and how so many of these marks may not last very long. Some may last longer, and yet there is the persistence of these beautiful hills that have been here for eons, and the snow that's covering them. And I felt this peace, knowing that we are part of this larger world, this larger existence that is sustained and wrapped in love. And we have the opportunity to delve into that beautiful current of love that is all around us. And I hope we can find the time to do that, even in these strange and different circumstances we might find ourselves in this Advent season as we explore the mystery of Christ with us. Tonight we get to talk a little bit about that mystery with Matt Gabbard. Matt is a demonstration pilot and an advertising coordinator at an aircraft sales brokerage company in Lexington. On top of all the other things he does, including composing music. And so we're glad to get the chance to talk with Matt, to hear his devotion, and then find out a little bit more about that. So let's go and talk with Matt. Hey Matt, how are you doing? Are you minimalist or are you maximalist?
It's kind of in the middle, in the middleist, I guess you could say. Middle.
Hey everybody, I was just informed that there's no sound coming out. So we're going to try it again, and I think there's sound this time. And if not, we'll see. Luckily, we tape these things beforehand. So, hey Matt, how are you doing?
Hey Aaron, I'm doing all right. How are you?
Good. It's good to see you. It's good to get to hang out. Have things been busier for you lately, or have they been less busy? I mean, how are things going?
Surprisingly more busy. It's just business at work has been really good this year. It's going to be a record year, based on our sales numbers, and it's really surprising. I don't know why that is exactly, unless it's just people want their own freedom when faced with flying on the airlines. It's just too much of a hassle, too much of a safety issue for them as far as the COVID-19 goes, and I think people just want that freedom. So people who can have the money, they've been buying airplanes, which is good for us, and that in turn keeps me pretty busy.
Wow.
So things at work are busy, but also things here at home equally busy, and we just got our tree up yesterday, started the decorations, and things are thankfully pretty normal as far as that stuff goes. Everybody's healthy, and so anyway, things are good right now.
Do y'all have a lengthy decorating process, or is this are you minimalist or are you maximalist?
It's kind of in the middle, in the middleist, I guess.
Middleist.
We don't try to draw it out or anything. We wait every year till after Thanksgiving, not the day after Thanksgiving necessarily, but just after Thanksgiving, and let it go then. Probably we did it a little bit earlier this year because we had a little time, and I want Sky to be able to experience that her last kind of year at home, and also just have a little more time to enjoy it since they're going to be home all the time, and they are home all the time. So and we're not quite finished yet, but we're getting there.
Yeah, well, I didn't really think about it. Sky's last year at home really is at home.
That's right.
So
she's it's not fun for her. She'd rather be out at school and have that senior year experience, and I hate it for her. I hate it for all the seniors that it's affecting them like this, but we're doing the best we can. Hopefully they'll get back into in-person school in January, hopefully.
Yeah, well, hopefully so. Hopefully we can get vaccines going before too long, and things will start be able to start crawling out of our houses and being back in person with people at some point. Well, I really appreciate you doing this, and especially being the first person to do our Advent Vespers. So that tonight you've written a devotional and for Vespers, and so we're going to give you a chance to read the devotional and then talk about it a little bit. I tell you, Advent devotions are one of my favorite times during the year to get to just hear from everybody at church, get a little bit of insight into folks' lives and what they do, and just to get to hear from everybody about how they're experiencing Advent this year too. So why don't you go ahead and read your devotion for us, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. All right.
My scripture is Luke 21:34 through 38, and I chose to use the Message as the translation. So the scripture is as follows: "But be on your guard. Don't let the sharp edge of your expectation get dulled by parties and drinking and shopping. Otherwise, the day is going to take you by complete surprise, spring on you suddenly like a trap, for it's going to come on everyone, everywhere at once. So whatever you do, don't go to sleep at the switch. Pray constantly that you will have the strength and wits to make it through everything that's coming and end up on your feet before the Son of Man." He spent his days in the temple teaching. but his nights out on the mountain called Olives. All the people were up at the crack of dawn to come to the temple and listen to him. Again, that's from the Message. All right. Before every takeoff, pilots do a briefing in which they review the type of takeoff, aircraft configuration, engine failure procedures, speeds, and abort procedures for this highly critical phase of flight. The takeoff briefing, as you might imagine, will be different for a two-seat Cessna than a large multi-engine airliner. Regardless of the size and type of aircraft, if the briefing is not completed and reviewed, the result could be catastrophic. Several high-profile accidents have occurred because the crew forgot to accomplish takeoff checklist items which doomed the aircraft. Or perhaps the crew thought they had completed these items when in fact they had become complacent and the items were never done. Closer to home, the Comair 5191 accident here in Lexington occurred, among other factors, because the pilots were discussing non-pertinent things as they taxied out and attempted to take off from the wrong runway. Because of this accident, pilots' takeoff briefings today include making sure the aircraft is lined up on the correct runway. Also, air carrier pilots are prohibited from engaging in extraneous, non-pertinent conversation until the aircraft is at or above 10,000 feet. When one doesn't prepare for a potentially dangerous or hazardous activity, such as getting an airplane into the sky safely, because they have become lazy, lackadaisical, or complacent, bad things can happen. In the same way, we tend to become complacent, at least I do, when it comes to the to the coming of Jesus. I know this scripture is speaking of the return of Christ, but it seems to be equally apropos to the Advent season. This has been a challenging year, and I feel that we are all weary of COVID-19, racial injustice issues, and the presidential election. Any of these alone would place stress on a society, let alone all three of them. Throw in climate change, extreme weather, destructive wildfires, travel restrictions, job losses, distance learning, the list goes on, and you can see how easy it is to become complacent, to just want to lay in your bed and wait until it's all over. But as our governor would say, we just can't be doing that. In a normal year, especially during this usually festive time of the year, we can't let our expectation get dulled by parties and drinking and shopping. In these extraordinary times, our expectation of the coming of our Savior can't be dulled by the very things that have made us so weary and exhausted. We can't allow these 2020 things to take over our thoughts and preparations of Jesus, lest we miss the mystery and joy this time of year brings. Instead, we need to pray constantly that we will have the strength and wits to make it through everything that's coming and end up on our feet. If we do these briefings, we will be prepared for anything that comes, both the good and the bad. We will be ready and continue soaring toward the hope and promise of a time when our weariness will be replaced with strength and our despair with joy.
Thanks, Matt. I appreciate you reading that for us and writing it for us too. That's wonderful, and it's great to get to hear a little bit about your flying too, and about how you do that. The world is a safer place because I don't have a job where people's actual lives depend on it. I'm glad that there are good folks who can handle that. You know, as you were reading this, and I was listening to you read it again, it struck me at the end how the season of Advent, as you're looking at it here, really has to do with our community and how what we do matters. It's easy to kind of think, oh well, what I do doesn't matter. I'm gonna lay down and stay in bed, or shut the world out, which sometimes for mental health, hey, you probably need to do that. But what we do, as you were reading this, it was making me think about how what we do really matters, not just for us, but for the people around us. It makes a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sure.
So tell me a little bit about Advent and how you see how you all usually experience Advent, what you do. Is there something about Advent that's most meaningful for you? What are the things that kind of bring you joy and meaning during the season?
We actually didn't start to really participate in Advent until probably 2005 and 6, that winter when we lived in Austria for that time. Christy was teaching English there. We were able to basically assimilate into life in Austria, and got to know a lot of the people there that we still love to this day. And they, Europeans, Germany, Austria, that time of year is such a special time because of the traditions that they have, primarily, I'm sure, through the Catholic Church. But for them to take that in of course, we were at a Protestant Baptist church there, but for them to take that tradition and just make it a beautiful just expression of community, like you said, and anticipation, and just manifesting that anticipation through music and food and community gatherings and worship services. I think that's kind of when it solidified for us. So we've taken a lot of those traditions, or tried to, and brought them back and put them on a much smaller scale here in our house, with the Advent wreath that we place on the table, and we have the 4 candles for each week, and then finally the Christ candle at the last day. And we've incorporated that, and we, more recently with Central, we love reading the devotions. We do that for our devotion every night. It's just a time for us to be as a family. We do something year round, but that's the perfect time throughout the Advent season to get to know people from Central and to just experience the different viewpoints of Advent and Christmas. It's just just a lovely time. So it's a pretty special time for us here.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. And that's it's really cool that you all were kind of bringing over things that you gathered from your time in Austria as well, there.
Yeah. Because I admit I didn't know much about Advent, I guess, before that. It's just something that didn't really experience growing up. We didn't really celebrate it growing up. So it's just a cool thing that we've kind of incorporated into our lives.
Yeah, well, that's wonderful, and wonderful that you're all able to do that at home too, to really see that and continue that in the house as well. That's awesome. Well, is there anything this year that you all what's different about this year? Are there things that you're having to change plans, do things differently than you normally would, or things?
As far as Advent goes, I mean, since we do kind of just, it is kind of our own private thing in house, it's not really that different. I do want to express appreciation to Charles and Dara and others who brought us the Advent materials that we could participate in and be active in this time at home. Especially those who maybe didn't usually do this tradition or these activities. They're able to do that, and that's, like you said, it's their small way of bringing that community to everybody. When we can't be physically together, they're able to come and bring those activities to us and those materials to us, and so we have those the litany and some of the prayers. That's different because of the pandemic, and we may not normally have those at home. So I appreciate that. So hopefully people who have received those have taken part in those activities, because they really are they're special and a way to celebrate and to become closer together.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's one of the things that it kind of is. It can be a hidden blessing. I know it's difficult for folks who aren't able to see others as much, and we're more isolated. At the same time, we do have an opportunity to try to experience some of these same practices that we do in our corporate worship service together by ourselves at home, and see Christ's presence kind of all around us in different places. So one of the things that I love about your devotion is that you do this. You talked about mystery and joy together, and I love that combination, because whenever I think about it, I'm like, oh yeah, mystery, that's good. But then when I really think about it, it's like, I don't want mystery. I spend a lot of time trying to make sure that things are not mysterious in my life, but we know what's going to happen, or try to make things safe and comfortable. But there is a mystery to this time, and it's beautiful. And I love it. How do you sense those kind of themes running through Advent for you, this mystery and joy, or how do you experience those in Advent?
Yeah, when I think about the mystery of Advent, I'm reminded of the French composer Francis Poulenc, who is one of my favorites. I studied choral music, and he has some of the most beautiful choral music that I've ever heard. It's there's a 4-piece basically set, 4 motets for the time of Christmas, I believe it is, and the first one is O Magnum Mysterium, so the great mystery, and it talks about this very thing. And so when I think about it, I think about that music and how it really embodies this mystery. But really what it comes down to is, why would God send someone in the form of a innocent little child to come to our rescue? Because we were just at a place in our being, our existence, that showed that we couldn't take care of ourselves. We were just at this kind of crossroads. But paradoxically, he sent Jesus as a child, and the mystery is, I guess, the paradox to me. How can this child who is helpless, humans by nature when they're born are completely helpless, how could that, and why could that happen? So I think it comes to that, to me. And life in itself is, it's despair, it's sadness, but, and I don't mean that there's been lots of it in history. I don't mean that my life is like that.
There is despair at times, yeah.
Yeah. Woe, agony on me, as they would say on Hee Haw. There's joy that can be found regardless of what's going on, whether it's war, whether it's pandemic, whether there's booming economic times. There's joy that can be found in that child. And I guess the mystery and that's how the mystery and the joy kind of go together for me, is that we have hope that it's not going to be despair and agony forever.
Yeah. I do like that. And for some reason, paradoxically, it works. When you say that, and you think, oh, the mystery, it's unknown, but at the same time, there is a joy in it, because it's pretty obvious it's the way things are. There's so many things we don't understand.
Exactly. Yeah.
And being reminded again that it is incarnation. God is coming to be with us. That is, the heart of this, beautiful mystery that God would choose.
And we need that reminder at least once a year. So
yeah,
I guess Advent's a great time to have that reminder.
Yeah,
so.
Definitely. Well, tell me a little bit about flying. What was it that they got you interested or got you hooked into in flying?
People ask me that a lot, and I guess it always comes down to the fact that my dad took me on a trip to Texas. I think his parents, my grandparents, were down there already. They had driven down there because my grandmother would never have flown. She never flew in her life. They had driven down there. They loved to go fishing, so they went to this big lake in Texas. And so my dad took me out of my three brothers to go on this fishing trip. And I don't know why we flew, but we flew from Lexington down there, and I remember being very nervous, very scared about it. But once that plane took off, I was hooked. I mean, I didn't have any other family members who were pilots or in aviation, like a lot of people do. They pass it down to their kids. But that to me was kind of the first moment that I really became interested in it. And I eventually wanted to be a military pilot. The glamour of being a fighter pilot was really awesome. But of course, I quickly saw that my eyesight or whatever, I didn't have what it took. But there's so many opportunities in civilian aviation that were appealing to me, and so that's kind of how it started. And I'm of course still learning and still training and all that all the time. And it's always something you can learn from all the time. But it's definitely a joy, and it's always been a challenge, but it's definitely a joy in my life.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Now how old did you say when you were when you took the trip?
I think I was about 8.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, yeah.
It's amazing how things, when we're children, can become so foundational in our lives, and we don't really aren't expecting it, and then
Right. Yeah, my dad is since passed away, but just knowing that he did that for me, when I was 8 years old, he never had he didn't know I was interested in it until I lost him in 1996. But just if he could see kind of where I am now, that's pretty cool. Even though he did take a few flying lessons when he was in his early 20s or something, but he never stuck with it. But just for him to be able to see kind of where I am now, would be pretty neat. So.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything? Do you have any times when you were flying where you, there were, did you have really great times or really bad times? Do you have any good flying stories, Matt?
Oh, well, there have been some interesting experiences. I've never had any kind of major emergency. Which is good. Just a few kind of times that I've kind of started to sweat and wish I was on the ground. Things like picking up ice, flying through clouds that have below freezing temperatures and a lot of moisture, and the ice picks up on your wings, and that's never a good thing. Even for the big planes and the professional flight crews, they always want to avoid the ice when they can. Even though they're certified to fly through that ice, we as the little guy, we're not usually certified to do that, and so it's always dangerous. There have been lots of accidents that have happened because of that. So I've had a few experiences where I picked up some ice on the surfaces of the airplane, and it's been stressful to try to figure out how to get to warmer air or get on the ground and let it get off there. Not really any engine issues. Had a few doors that have kind of popped open or that type of thing.
Did you say doors that have kind of popped open?
Yeah, we'll leave it there. I don't myself from embarrassment.
Oh, okay. No, that would have been my last flight.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing that has caused a lot of accidents. I mean, I don't want to always come back to accidents, but pilots always learn from the mistakes of others, and there have been lots of accidents where an airplane goes down the runway to take off, a door pops open, and usually the air pressure and the slipstream of the side of the airplane will keep that door against the aircraft fuselage. But pilots panic, and what they do is they focus on that door. They focus on the sound. They don't focus on flying the airplane. If you focus on flying the airplane always keep the airplane level and keep the speed where it needs to be, then you'll be fine. It's where they get distracted and they get into a stall and then the spin situation, which is that close to the ground, is almost always fatal. So it sounds kind of scary, but and it does get your attention, but all you have to do is just come back around and land, and it's not a big deal at all as long as you just fly the airplane. You might have a little bit of extra noise, you might have a little bit of extra cold air flowing in on you, but it's no big deal. So people let it snowball and become just much bigger than it needs to be. So try not to do that.
This is why I won't be flying anytime soon.
Right.
But that sounds like good advice for life too. It's easy to kind of like it's like your devotion in a lot of ways. We can become distracted.
Yeah. You always have to just you can't become complacent. You need to be diligent and think about what's going on and keep your mind on those things, and that's the important things. But if you focus on the negative or this one little thing over here that seems big but in reality isn't, if you do that, you're gonna it's gonna become a bad situation. So I think you're right. That's a good analogy.
Yeah, we can focus on those, on just flying the plane. Those things that are most important will make a big difference. Yeah.
There's a saying that all pilots pretty much learn is, in this order: you have to aviate, then you have to navigate, then you have to communicate. Aviate, navigate, communicate, in that order. So you fly the plane, and then you fly the plane where it needs to be going, and then you talk on the radio or you talk to whoever. So you do that in that order, most likely you're gonna be okay. But some people try to do it out of order and ends up in a bad situation.
Yeah. Well, it's a good encouragement too to take a deep breath and to be calm and trust that that even in the mystery there's joy, there's hope, there's good things around us. And we can be part of this community where we're continuing to help each other and keep each other focused on those things that are important.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Well, I really appreciate you taking time out to do this, Matt, and to share with us. So grateful for your devotion and for all that you do for our congregation, and for so glad that you're part of our central family. So thanks so much for sharing with us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
Well, tell the rest of your folks hello from us. And
okay, we'll do.
And you all have a good evening, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Okay,
Aaron.
we'll see you. Bye. Thanks so much, Matt, for joining us. Thanks, everybody, for the quick messages about the audio, too. So we just kept on flying the plane, and we got there. I appreciate you so much, Matt, for your lessons today, for taking the time out to share with us, and for sharing your devotion with us as well, too. A lot to learn, a lot of good things to remember, and so good to get to see you and to get to see all of you this evening on the chat as well. Thank you for continuing to be this beautiful family of faith that sustains us through this time. Let's sing a song before we go. It's probably a little early in the season to sing this, but we'll do it anyway. Oh, come all you faithful. Oh, come all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. Oh, come ye to Bethlehem. Come and Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. Christ the Lord. Amen. Thanks so much for being here this evening. We'd love to connect with you all too in other ways. You can join us back here on our YouTube channel for worship on Sunday at 11 a.m. You can go and find out more about our congregation at our website, lexcentral.com, if you'd like to share a prayer request, or if you'd like to check out the prayer requests that are there to keep each other in your prayers as we're distanced. You can just go to the front of the website and you'll find links there to all of those things. If you'd like to join a Zoom group or sign up for our newsletter, you can find links there as well. We hope that you'll join us as we continue to celebrate Advent this season. On Sunday, we also have a special service in the evening at 6 p.m. We will have our candlelight communion service, and it's one of my favorite services of the whole year, maybe my favorite. And I love the end when we usually get to stand in the circle with our lights, and we hate that we'll have to do that virtually this year, but excited about the opportunity to do that still. And we're gonna do our best to light some candles from our homes and light some candles in the sanctuary again, so that we can be present with each other and be reminded that we take this light with us, that this light is everywhere we go. So thanks again for being here this evening, and we'll see you again soon. Now, go in peace.